depths of human consciousness lies one of the most profound paradoxes of existence, the transformative power of self-acceptance. This ancient wisdom, articulated so eloquently by humanistic psychologist Carl Rogers, reveals a truth that countless philosophers, mystics, and thinkers have contemplated throughout history. The journey toward genuine personal growth begins not with harsh self-criticism or relentless pursuit of an ideal self, but with the radical act of embracing who we are in this very moment. This paradox challenges our conventional understanding of change and development. We live in a culture that constantly whispers that we are not enough, that we must become something other than what we are to find happiness, success, or fulfillment. We are taught to identify our flaws, to push against our limitations, to fight our nature in pursuit of some imagined perfect version of ourselves. Yet Rogers suggests something revolutionary, that true transformation emerges from a place of complete self-acceptance, not self-rejection. The ancient Greek aphorism, "Know thyself," carved into the temple of Apollo at Delphi, speaks to this same fundamental truth. Self-knowledge and self-acceptance are inextricably linked, forming the foundation upon which all meaningful growth occurs. When we truly see ourselves without the distorting lens of judgment or the need to be different, we create space for authentic change to emerge naturally and organically. Consider the nature of a flower blooming. The seed does not reject its current state to become a flower. It accepts its essence and allows its inherent potential to unfold. This is not passive resignation, but an active embrace of what is, creating the conditions for what might become. Similarly, human growth follows this organic pattern when we stop fighting against our fundamental nature and begin working with it instead. The philosopher Martin Heidegger spoke of authentic being as the courage to be ourselves in the face of social pressures to conform. This authenticity requires us to confront what he called thrownness, the given circumstances of our existence, our temperament, our history, our limitations. Rather than spending our energy wishing we were thrown into different circumstances, acceptance invites us to discover the unique possibilities that emerge from exactly where we find ourselves. Self-acceptance does not mean complacency or resignation to harmful patterns. It means seeing clearly, without the fog of self-deception or the harsh glare of self-condemnation. When we stop using our energy to maintain elaborate defenses against aspects of ourselves we find unacceptable, that energy becomes available for growth and transformation. It is like removing a dam that has been holding back a river. The water naturally flows toward its destination. The Buddhist concept of mindfulness offers another lens through which to understand this paradox. Mindfulness practice involves observing our thoughts, emotions, and sensations without immediately trying to change them. This non-judgmental awareness creates space between ourselves and our experiences, allowing us to respond rather than react. In this space of acceptance, we discover that much of what we thought was fixed and unchangeable is actually fluid and dynamic. Viktor Frankl, writing from his experience in Nazi concentration camps, discovered that even in the most extreme circumstances, we retain the freedom to choose our response to what happens to us. This ultimate freedom, however, can only be accessed when we first accept the reality of our situation. Denial or resistance to what is blocks our ability to find meaning and create change within our circumstances. Acceptance opens the door to responsibility, our ability to respond consciously rather than react unconsciously. The shadow work of Carl Jung illuminates another dimension of this paradox. Jung recognized that we all possess aspects of ourselves that we reject, deny, or project onto others. These shadow elements do not disappear through rejection. They often grow stronger and more destructive when pushed into the unconscious. Only by accepting and integrating these aspects of ourselves can we become whole and direct our energy toward conscious growth rather than unconscious sabotage. This integration requires tremendous courage. It means acknowledging our capacity for selfishness alongside our generosity, our potential for cruelty alongside our compassion, our tendency toward laziness alongside our drive for achievement. This is not about indulging negative qualities, but about bringing them into conscious awareness where they can be understood, accepted, and transformed through integration rather than elimination. The ancient Chinese philosophy of Taoism speaks of Wu Wei, often translated as non-action or effortless action. This concept suggests that the most powerful actions flow from a state of alignment with natural forces rather than fighting against them. When applied to personal growth, Wu Wei suggests that lasting change emerges from accepting and working with our natural tendencies rather than forcing ourselves into unnatural molds. Consider how water shapes stone, not through force, but through persistent, gentle contact over time. Water does not reject the stone or try to become something other than water. It simply follows its nature, and in doing so creates profound transformation. Human growth can follow this same principle when we stop trying to force ourselves to be different and instead allow our authentic nature to express itself fully. The existentialist philosophers, particularly Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir, emphasize that we are condemned to be free, that existence precedes essence, meaning we must create ourselves through our choices. This freedom can feel overwhelming until we realize that it begins with accepting the basic fact of our existence and our responsibility to choose. We cannot choose authentically while rejecting fundamental aspects of who we are. Self-acceptance also involves accepting our mortality and limitations. The ancient Stoics understood that much suffering comes from fighting against things beyond our control. Epictetus taught that we can control our responses, but not external circumstances. This wisdom invites us to accept what cannot be changed while taking full responsibility for what can be influenced, primarily our thoughts, attitudes, and actions. The paradox deepens when we consider that self-acceptance must include accepting our resistance to self-acceptance. Many people struggle with accepting themselves because they judge their inability to be self-accepting. This creates a recursive loop of self-rejection that can only be broken by accepting even our self-rejection. It is like learning to surf by first accepting that we will fall many times rather than fighting the inevitability of falling. In relationships, this paradox manifests as the recognition that we cannot truly love others while rejecting ourselves, nor can we accept others while harboring deep self-rejection. The quality of our relationship with ourselves sets the template for all other relationships. When we accept ourselves unconditionally, we create space for others to be themselves without needing them to fulfill our unmet needs for acceptance. The spiritual traditions of the world have long recognized this truth. In Christianity, the concept of grace suggests that we are loved and accepted not because of what we do, but simply because we exist. This divine acceptance becomes the foundation for transformation. Similarly, in Hinduism, the recognition of Atman, the true self that is one with Brahman, involves accepting our divine nature while also accepting our human limitations. Self-acceptance is not a destination but a practice, a way of being that must be renewed moment by moment. It requires developing what the Buddhists call beginner's mind, approaching ourselves with curiosity and openness rather than preconceived notions about who we should be. Each moment offers a fresh opportunity to accept what is present without immediately rushing to change it. This practice becomes particularly challenging when facing our mistakes, failures, and shortcomings. The tendency is to either minimize them through denial or magnify them through self-attack. Self-acceptance offers a third way, seeing clearly what happened, taking responsibility without taking on shame, and allowing the natural learning and growth that emerge from honest self-reflection. The neuroscience of change supports this ancient wisdom. Research shows that when we approach ourselves with kindness and acceptance, our nervous system relaxes into a state that is more conducive to learning and adaptation. Self-criticism triggers our threat detection systems, creating a physiological state that actually inhibits growth and learning. Acceptance activates our parasympathetic nervous system, creating optimal conditions for integration and transformation. As we deepen our practice of self-acceptance, we begin to discover that what we thought were fixed personality traits are often adaptive strategies we developed in response to earlier circumstances. When we accept these strategies without judgment, we can appreciate how they served us, while also recognizing when they no longer fit our current situation. This recognition naturally leads to new choices without the drama and struggle of forced change. The paradox of self-acceptance ultimately points to a deeper truth about the nature of consciousness itself. We are not fixed entities that need to be improved, but dynamic processes of becoming. Like a river that is never the same water twice yet maintains its essential character, we are constantly changing while remaining fundamentally ourselves. Accepting this flow-like nature of our being allows us to participate consciously in our own becoming rather than fighting against it. This understanding transforms our relationship with time and progress. Instead of seeing personal growth as a linear journey from a flawed present to an improved future, we begin to appreciate the spiral nature of development. We revisit similar themes and challenges at deeper levels, each time with greater wisdom and acceptance. What once seemed like regression reveals itself as integration at a more profound level. The practice of unconditional self-acceptance is perhaps one of the most radical acts we can undertake in a world that profits from our dissatisfaction with ourselves. It is an act of rebellion against the forces that would have us believe we are insufficient as we are. It is also an act of faith in the inherent wisdom of life itself, trusting that when we create the right conditions through acceptance, growth will emerge naturally. In the end, Carl Rogers' paradox reveals that the greatest changes in our lives come not from forcing transformation, but from creating the internal conditions where transformation can occur organically. When we accept ourselves completely, we discover that we were never broken to begin with. We were simply seeds waiting for the right conditions to bloom. In the soil of self-acceptance, the most authentic and lasting growth takes root, flourishing in ways we could never have forced or predicted. This is the path of unconditional acceptance, not a passive surrender to mediocrity, but an active embrace of our full humanity as the foundation for conscious evolution. In accepting who we are, we discover who we might become. In embracing our current limitations, we find the energy to transcend them. In the curious paradox of acceptance, we find the key to authentic transformation and the door to a life of greater consciousness, meaning, and fulfillment.